Hello, everybody. Welcome back. If you can please take your seat, we're going to get started now. And welcome to the closing plenary of our 2024 National Conference. Today, we will showcase two signature undertakings in the impact investing industry and what they mean for the future of impact investing and beyond. We will explore two game-changing efforts that touch upon all of our conference themes, and particularly upon the importance of innovation and partnership. We will hear from leaders at the forefront of the $27 billion Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is working to connect climate finance with community development finance. And then we will hear from award-winning filmmaker Ava DuVernay and Ford Foundation's Roy Swan about a unique and exciting Hollywood partnership that is leveraging impact investing capital. But before the first panel comes on, I'm honored to share a brief message from California Governor Gavin Newsom about partnerships. Please take a look.
Hi, everybody. It's Governor Gavin Newsom here, and I'm honored to have all of you here. Yes, I'll say it, in the great state of California, a state of dreamers, of doers, of entrepreneurs, of innovators, a state that long prides itself on being on the leading and cutting edge of new ideas. You have chosen wisely. And of course, I hope you're all here for the same reason, by the way, I am, and that's to tackle some of today's greatest challenges, tackle some of today's greatest threats, and of course, to plan for a better future. You know, look, I think at least most of us agree that our biggest problems continue to be new, and old. Climate change, reproductive freedom, immigration reform, so many problems that need rapid, creative solutions, like those being driven by the partnerships that you are driving. And that's why California is proud to lead with over 50 public-private partnerships worth, last estimate, about $4.2 billion. Partnerships that we're already seeing impacts, enormous impacts in the lives of people, not just in California and across our country, but impacts that we're also believe are being felt across the globe. Partnerships as well that offer opportunities. And I look forward to working with all of you as we advance those opportunities and a healthy and thriving sense of community. Because I think we also agree on this, that we're all better off when we're all better off. And so I want to just thank you for being working partners, not sparring partners. Thank you for your partnership, your faith and devotion and commitment to California.
Whoa, that is really good.
That is great. Good afternoon. Is everybody still awake? Yes? All right. I'm Deborah Schwartz, Managing Director for Impact Investments at the MacArthur Foundation, and I am thrilled to be here today with three rock stars from the world of fighting climate change and creating problems, solutions to problems that typically, see, I'm obviously not awake. Creating solutions to the problems that we know are in front of us and that we know we don't have a lot of time to solve and that they are working so hard to address. So I'm going to start here with my colleague Jahi from EPA. This phrase, decisive decade, has been used to describe the time we are in right now. Why is that? And what is the GGRF? And how does this all fit together? How is it helping us with the decisive decade we face?
Great. Well, thank you, Deborah, and thanks to Matt and the whole MIE team for having us here today. Jahi Wise, I'm a senior advisor to the administrator at the Environmental Protection Agency, and for the last couple of years have helped implement this program called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Decisive decade is a great place to start when you look at the arc of the work that needs to be done to mitigate and adapt to the impacts of climate change. A lot of our best models show that much of the work needs to happen between now and 2030. And so folks in the climate space have coined this term, the decisive decade, to show that most of the work that we need to get done between now and 2050 to maintain a livable planet actually needs to happen in the next 7 to 10 years. And so it creates a sense of urgency about what needs to happen now to sustain and achieve the future that we all want. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is one of the tools in the arsenal of the Biden-Harris administration to help us achieve that livable future. It's a $27 billion program that's administered by EPA to advance the deployment of clean technologies and climate investment in every corner of this country. I'm incredibly excited about it, and I'll say why. One, this is the first time in history that we have a national, domestically focused, clean technology financing infrastructure. We've always had internationally focused, we've got the DFC, but this is the first time we've had a domestically focused clean financing infrastructure. Two, this is the second time we've had this kind of infrastructure at scale. $27 billion, a huge commitment of capital. And three, this is the first time that we've had this type of infrastructure focused on low-income and disadvantaged communities. 70% of the resources that come out of this program will actually be targeted at communities that are frontline, fence line, environmental justice, energy communities, and other places that we know need this investment. Just quickly, GGRF, it's actually 3 different but complementary programs. We'll have my colleagues here will talk more about how each of these programs will come to life because they will do much of that work. But there's a $14 billion program, National Clean Investment Fund, which has been awarded to 3 large national nonprofit financial institutions to deploy directly into clean technology projects. There's a $6 billion Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, which has been awarded to 5 national nonprofits who will seed capital, climate capital, into hundreds of community lenders across the country over the next 5 years. And then there's a $7 billion Solar for All program, which will provide support to over 60 state tribes, territories, and eligible nonprofits to deploy into residential serving solar. So a big suite of kind of programs that collectively we think will make a big dent in the needs of the decisive decade.
Thank you. Are there aspects to the design that you just described with the 3 different pieces, and you've got this aspiration, as Matt said in his introduction, and as you've noted, to connect climate and community in a way that we have not always seen from big federal government spending programs? Are there aspects of the design that you think were particularly important as you thought about how to make that connection?
Yeah. So first we'll talk. We start off with the decisive decade urgency. We need to do a lot, kind of now, if we want to have a chance of meeting the moment on climate change. As we were thinking about the development of this program, we wanted to make sure we focused on institutions who have the capacity and sophistication to deploy these resources. And the good news is, thanks to a lot of the work that folks like you all are doing, those institutions exist, and many of them have been thriving for decades at this point. And so the bridge, I think, to community development is in some ways very tactical. It's to leverage the resources and strengths of folks like Beth and Harold, who've done this work for a long time, and bring it into the climate space. I think the second key piece, urgency, second piece is people. The president, the administrator have been clear from the beginning of our administration that when we talk about climate, we're talking about people. This is a planetary issue that impacts real people's lives. One of my favorite quips the president has is this is about creating breathing room for people. He talks about it in terms of financial breathing room, being able to sit around the table and pay for your groceries and medical bills. It's also breathing room in the sense of environmental justice communities who are currently breathing polluted air and creating a space for them not to have those experiences. If we want to center people in climate, we need to center institutions who have a track record of serving people. Again, that takes us back to community development institutions who've been doing that work, high-touch lending, impact-focused finance for a long time, and leveraging those folks into the fight was a big part of how we thought about the design.
So helpful. So speaking of that, Beth, introduce yourself and help us understand how you fit into the GGRF and what is this new collaboration that you're leading, Climate United.
Yes, thank you, and thanks to Matt and the MIE team for having us. So, hi everyone, I'm Beth Bafford. For the last 10 years, have led strategy and new product development for Calvert Impact, a global nonprofit organization focused on economic and climate justice in the US and globally. We kind of saw, when the IRA was passed, we saw this incredible program that was being put in place. and decided to team up with two other organizations, two other national nonprofit financing organizations, Self-Help based in North Carolina and Community Preservation Corporation based in New York, to create this coalition called Climate United that was one of the applicants, and now, thanks Jahi, one of the awardees of the National Clean Investment Fund competition, so the $14 billion competition that Jahi mentioned. So we were awarded nearly $7 billion as a coalition, as really a part of this network that the EPA has now created, a network of the other National Clean Investment Fund awardees, a network of the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator awardees, and the Solar for All, so that we are all connected under this program objective that Jahi mentioned. And so what Climate United is essentially a national cross-sector and cross-segment approach to bring the benefits of clean technologies to families, to small businesses, to community infrastructure, essentially the places where people live, work, learn, and play. We are trying to bring these benefits to people's lives, like Jahi mentioned, in a way that shows up as a clear benefit that is obviously better for our planet, but it's also better for them and their lives. And that's really how we designed the strategy in a way that does that directly and also leverages significant amounts of private capital to really educate, support, demonstrate what's possible, and bring private capital along, because we all know that $27 billion is an extremely amazing investment from the federal government, but it's not going to be enough to transition every community across the country. And so we need the private markets to understand how this works and really make sure that they can get it done kind of far into the future.
So it is this interesting thing of being, on the one hand, just a historic, large amount of capital flowing into Calvert and other community development organizations. On the other hand, not enough to solve the whole problem. But let's stay with the $27 billion and the $7 billion that's going to Climate United. What is success going to look like for you guys over the next 3-5 years, and what's it going to take?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the two kind of responses to the design that Jahi mentioned that get us really excited, and I think it just creates a moment like we have not seen in our 30 years of existence, and certainly I think in a lot of the history of the community development industry. So one is kind of more heart, and two is I would say the financial wonk in me, the structured finance wonk in me. So on the heart piece, it is that, like, centering people, as Jahi mentioned, is a huge part of how this is going to be possible, and not only how to think about how we invest and where we invest, because that's what we've done for a long time, is centering people in affordable housing, in small business, in access to clean energy, but really trying to shift the narrative around climate change and adapting to a net zero future from one of this global, massive, kind of uncontrollable problem to something that is really an opportunity for people, for families, for businesses, for local communities. This is an opportunity for them to save money, save on their operating costs, save on their energy bills, to clean up their air for their kids and their communities, to create really an amazing amount of quality jobs and career paths in this industry. That is what this has to be about if we are going to see a future for clean energy policy and see a path to getting to the 2050 goals that Jahi mentioned. It has to be about opportunity and hope and solving real life problems, right? For the people that we serve and for many of us, right? Like, getting a heat pump in your house is not on your top 30 list of things that you need to do day in and day out, right? You're feeding your family, you're getting to work, you're fixing your car. There are so many things that people care about, and until we make this transition more of a priority for people and see those benefits, we're not going to get out of this kind of politicized or more, I would say, kind of doom and gloom nature of climate. So I think that's one of the pieces that's really exciting about the design, and what success looks like for us is telling that story, showing that to people in communities across the country. On the wonky side, what we're really excited about is this test of an approach that really blends centralized market makers with decentralized distribution of capital. And the community development industry, which I'm sure many people in this room have worked in for a long time and supported for a long time, has been a model of decentralization for 30, 40 years, which has had incredible results in local communities, but it has lacked some of the centralized market functions that really create efficiency and capacity and ability to kind of get over the hump to get to broader private capital, broader capital markets, different sources of liquidity. Those are all the things that we need as an industry in order to scale the work to meet the enormity of the challenge. And this program is really blending those two things. It is looking at how we create these centralized market functions, things like data aggregation, asset aggregation, creation of secondary markets, standardization of products, and building standards, right? If this money was purely just pushed down across the country, we would have amazing flowers blooming all over, but very little ability to aggregate that that activity in order to reach the scale and speed and needs of the broader capital markets. And this does both. And that is the first time I've seen that the federal government has looked at the problem, understood the need for the combination between speed, scale, and depth of impact, and really looked at a design that allows us to do both, and do both really well. And that's what gets me really excited, is demonstrating that works, because I think the ripple effects of that demonstration could be huge, not just for the climate justice work that we're doing now, but for the broader problems that we're trying to solve around all the other social issues that are critical for the country.
Thank you, Beth. So I don't pick up on that theme of scale, but first, Harold, would you introduce yourself?
Sure.
Would you introduce your organization, Opportunity Finance Network? But would you also say, what is a CDFI, just in case there might be a couple people in the room for whom that's a fresh acronym?
Absolutely. And hello, everyone. I know we are sitting between us and Ava and Devereaux. So there's some pressure here to continue to provide some value. So good afternoon, everybody. Harold Pettigrew, President and CEO for Opportunity Finance Network. OFN is the nation's leading community development finance organization, focused on, one, being an intermediary where we manage over $1 billion in total assets, focused on, two, our membership. We manage a network of over 400 members across the country that touch loan funds, banks, credit unions, venture firms, minority depository institutions, green banks, and there may be another form that I may have missed, but the full spectrum of institutions that are focused on making sure that capital and communities are always interlinked in the work that we do. And so OFN is a 40-year-old institution, and the purpose of us being created was to support this network, plain and simple. And so how we focus on membership, how we focus on institutions, more specifically CDFIs, is our central focus in coming into this tremendous opportunity. How many of you invest in CDFIs?
Woo!
All right.
Excellent.
Let's give a round of applause. There we go. We're going to work on making sure though that everyone raises their hands
Next year.
as we come into the next 6 years. So let's baseline a little bit. So CDFIs, as we mentioned, are community development financial institutions. Institutions that have been committed, again, to making sure that capital flows where it's needed most across the country. Institutions that are focused on low and moderate income communities, focused intentionally on from urban places to rural spaces to native communities, but making sure there's intentionality in capital flow. A couple of years ago when we all were hit by the pandemic, CDFIs were at the forefront in making sure that capital, like through programs like PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, and others, were at the forefront. You may have heard as well, CDFIs are financial first responders. And so we are the ones in communities making sure that when that small business needs capital, or that child care provider needs support, or housing providers need the right type of capital to make sure that projects are moving forward and are advanced, that there's an organization committed, not just simply on maximizing profits or maximizing returns or being risk averse, but making sure that capital is flowing into communities where it's needed most. And so the collision, as Matt talked about early, of climate finance and community development finance, this opportunity represents, I think, some brilliance, Jahi, frankly, in the way that this was designed, leveraging a network that the federal government has already invested in for the last 30 years. The CDFI fund was created 30 years ago and has deployed nearly $6 billion over that 30-year time period. $6 billion over 30 years. Through the CCIA, the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, we're going to be deploying collectively $6 billion over the next 6 years. And so we want to frame the scale of this to ensure that you understand certainly the urgency, certainly the importance. Last year at the OFN conference, I made a call to action for all CDFIs to become climate-focused lenders over the next 6 years. The purpose being that we can step into this particular moment, knowing that, again, we're being called to action to be the channel of capital being deployed into communities, but making sure that everyone is on deck, because there's no way that we could possibly be successful here unless everyone is on deck. And so the importance of this program was that it not only included the framework that Beth always so eloquently lays out for NCIF, but also CCIA. This program specifically being focused on accelerating the building of capacity for community lenders all across the country. And so 5 of our organizations, OFN was awarded $2.3 billion to support the network, over 90% of which is going to be passed through, flowing to those organizations to help build capacity, to bring some early stage capital into different projects that are focused in 3 areas: energy generation, infrastructure, specifically focused on transportation, and then the built environment. And so those 3 broad areas of investment where we're going to be working hand in hand with CDFIs to invest in communities.
Thank you. And I guess as a follow-on to that, I mean, you've already talked about the reason that scale is so important. We've heard that all the way across, the scale plus the urgency plus building on the infrastructure that exists. What do you think will be the keys to success for your members if they heed your call to action and they move toward, with urgency, toward that goal of becoming climate lenders and becoming partners in what you're trying to do? What are the keys to success, either within your network, within the larger impact investing and community development community? What do you see out there?
Absolutely. So as I kind of mentioned before, this network of organizations, 1,400 across the country, that are being called to action. Again, we started this conversation off with the decisive decade. I was about to jack that up. The decisive decade. Last year, I framed it as the hour of fate, the moment that sits between the promise and peril of our future. That right now, if we continue with business as usual, and we don't take this as our most central threat that we could possibly face as humans, right? That we're going to face the perils of the future, that we're going to continue having disastrous impacts within communities with natural disasters and other things. We have to act now, as we talked about. For us to be able to do that, it has to be in partnership with all of you. The federal government the Biden administration has put its flag in the ground, committing an unprecedented amount. $27 billion, that's actually trying to tackle $1 trillion issue. We're going to talk about a call to action later, but we're going to talk about it now. We need you to be successful. There is no way possible that we will be able to achieve what we need to achieve if each and every one of you are not committed in some way, shape, fashion, or form to committing your capital, to committing your human capital, your financial capital, and social capital, to making sure that all of the awardees, that the entirety of this program is successful. We're going to need your collective brilliance in helping us think through capital strategies, to market development and transformation activities. We need you. That is the simple call to action. We need each and every one of you to be active and to work in partnership with us on solutions so that the creativity that the NCIF awardees are bringing to structure capital and think through new approaches to the organizations that are on the ground are able to be supported. There's a notion of scale that we often talk about and we've been approaching here. The fact of the matter is we need scaled solutions, not necessarily the push for scaling organizations. We have to have a healthy balance of organizations that are small, that can dig deep into community, but then organizations that are also large, that can help mobilize capital and aggregate different solutions. I need you all to focus on scaled solutions and to work with us on national approaches that we can actually bring to meet CDFIs where they are, so that they can do the work that they have done over and over and over and over again. For every disaster we have faced, from floods to fires, you name it, CDFIs have been on the ground making sure that capital has been deployed into communities. I need you to help us with solutions, to help them do what they do and do what they do best.
Beth, does that resonate with you? Well, it resonates with this room. Does this, I think this is such a subtle but such a profoundly important point, scaled solutions versus scaled institutions, because I think that mindset of the only answer to scale is just one size fits all, you're giving us a different way of thinking about that. Does that fit in with what you were talking about earlier, which is the idea of central and decentralized?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have to coexist, and I think, to Harold's point, money flows easiest to things that are big and old, right? Large projects, organizations with capacity, with track record, with history, that is where it's easiest to get deals done. And this program is really calling on all of us to make sure that we don't just default to the big and old, that we really work on getting, I'm not nearly as good as Harold, so you don't need to apply. We really work on getting down to the small, to the new structures, to the organizations that have been just begging for resources to solve problems in their local communities for decades. That is the promise of this program, and that is what we are trying to accomplish, is how do we use the learnings and the kind of hub of the centralized functions to really look across what is happening across the distributed network, identify those pockets of brilliance, lift them up and spread them around, and that is where we need all of you, right? Those are the things that we need to understand in order to replicate. And so I'll just give a quick example, right? One of the things that we're trying to do in our investment strategy is figure out how to leverage the municipal markets that finance schools, so finance K-12 public school buildings, and look at the backlog of school renovation and figure out when a school gets renovated these days, there's no reason it shouldn't be renovated to all electric, highly efficient with solar on the roof.
100%.
So that is something that we are going to we're going to create a standardized approach, we're going to figure out the model, we're going to figure out exactly how we can plug in to the existing financing structures to decarbonize school buildings. But we could spend every dollar of our award just on schools in one state. And so we're going to only be able to do a handful of districts across the country. And we need folks like you to say, okay, there's a model that works. All that's needed is to plug in risk capital in the stack, right? There's a model that works. I'm going to bring that to my district, to my school building, to my neighborhood, so that those models can proliferate across the country. And that's the dissemination that we need through the network in order to make sure that this is a bigger program than even the $27 billion that the EPA has made available. And so I think the urgency and the call to make sure that that happens across the country is going to be critical.
Jackie, I want to come back to you in 1 second, but it occurs to me as you were talking, Beth, that both the example of how the program is designed to take advantage of the historic investment that's been made in CDFIs over the decades, although the number is sobering when you share it, and to say, how can we take advantage of the fact that there is an infrastructure? It may not be perfect, it may not be totally ready, it may not even be 100% purpose-built, but it is a really big starting point for rollout of this program. That philosophy is the same philosophy as saying, well, there's a muni market, and how can we go ahead and take advantage of the fact that schools are getting renovated and now make a difference, taking advantage of existing practices and resources and not trying to invent every single thing from scratch. And I think that theme resonates for me a great deal as you think about how to get to the pace of rollout that's needed. Yesterday during, I think it was the plenary, somebody used, and I think it was Tanya Allen, the expression constructive disruptor. So I want to turn back to you, Jackie. Is this program a constructive disruptor?
Sure. It sounds like a good thing to be. No, yes. The entire approach here is what we've been talking about here for the last 25 minutes. Like, how do we take existing infrastructure, inject it with the resources necessary to scale, and then deploy against these massive goals that we have in a way that brings in the follow-on capital behind us. It's an approach that comes out of this space. It's an approach that's well worn, and the hope here is that we can again leverage this history with the tweaks of scale, of more capital, and a kind of a aligned focus on climate to change communities across the country. I think what I really want to impress on folks, and I think you're hearing it here best from the folks who are practitioners and the leading practitioners in this space, and that's how they won these competitions. This is a real inflection point. This is a different moment than we've experienced. And I grew up in the community development space. These institutions have been a part of my entire life. And this is a different moment. And I want folks to appreciate that and to rise with us to that moment, to help provide the capital that's necessary to get from 27 to 270 billion and ultimately to $1 trillion, which we'll need over the next 10 years, to help us with the investment in these institutions that need to rapidly expand their capacity to do this work well all over the country. So I'm just incredibly excited about this moment, and I really hope you all are too.
Well, I think that is a beautiful note to end on, and to thank our panelists, and good luck.
That's the realest closing to a panel I've ever experienced.
Oh, we're going to do a picture.
Photo op. All right, thank you to that amazing panel. Thank you, Deborah, Jahi, Harold, and Beth for sharing the latest with us and for focusing on the urgency. I know that MIE and our members and so many of us in this room look forward to partnering with you as these dollars get deployed and where we see the change needed in our communities and our planet. We are now honored to bring on another very special change maker so she can share her story with you. Ava DuVernay is an award-winning filmmaker and founder of Array, an arts, social impact, and narrative change collective. As she embarked on her latest project, Ava reached out to the Ford Foundation and others in this room, other impact investors and philanthropists, to build a new kind of innovative partnership that could spark change in Hollywood and beyond. Ava and Roy Swan will tell us in a moment how and why they built this partnership to advance Ava's latest film, Origin, and what it means for the future of Hollywood and beyond. Before they get started, let's look at a quick video about the last 2 years at Array.
All right. All I need is a disco ball, and I can get the party started.
Roy was getting down to the music in that video
I am
backstage.
I am inspired by my bling with my array.
It's array socks.
This is. I was going to do something goofy and pull my legs up. So I typically introduce myself as the luckiest guy in the world, and I said that earlier in the panel I was doing, and for those who heard it and didn't understand, well, here we are. This is yet another reason why I'm the luckiest guy in the world, because I get to sit next to and have a chat with a living legend, someone who, I should say, if my daughters like someone, then they've passed a screen. So Ava DuVernay is, and I'm going to use a phrase I've used earlier to describe you, is a unicorn and a goddess of the industry. And as long as human history is recorded, the name Ava DuVernay will shine like the sun.
I need to hang around philanthropy people more often.
So
it's a nice warm room. I like it here. It's fantastic.
I want to start, before I turn over to my first couple questions, I want to acknowledge some people who have been a part of this most recent journey that we've just kind of passed the first mile mark, and that is starting with the brilliant Christine Looney, Abida Iqbal from my team, who carried the heavy water at the Ford Foundation. There were so many folks, Emerson Collective, Jennifer Arsenault and Scott Bromley, the Ann Wojcicki Foundation with Chevrolet Rivas, Pivotal Ventures, Nicole Bates, and we had Robert Wood Johnson, MacArthur. There was a whole host of folks who had the privilege of engaging with you and the masterpiece that is Origin.
Well, we all made it together. It was an incredible group of people, and I think some of the folks from MacArthur and Robert Wood Johnson, Pivotal, Emerson, Kimberly Stewart, Chris Paul, some family foundations, just a beautiful array of folks, pun intended. and kind of all led by Ford, our signal funder, our first on.
And I left out Victoria and Malcolm Brogdon, so I just want to give them a shout out. So with that, so who are you? Who is Ava DuVernay?
Oh, wow.
Who? I mean, I know what you are today. What about back then? What was the inspiration that took you to this point?
Yeah, I started, well, first of all, let me thank you all for being here. I am from a completely different industry. I do a completely different thing, and one of my favorite things to do is be in rooms with people that I don't know, so I could learn and listen, and so this has been a wonderful experience just being here for the last, I guess, couple of hours, so thank you, and thank you for having me. I started off as a publicist in the entertainment industry. So you all have people who are in communications at your different organizations. I was that, and I loved it. I did communications, publicity, marketing for movies. And I thought, wow, I got the best job ever. I get to be on movie sets and plan premieres and, book the actors on Jimmy Fallon. At the time it was, Jay Leno, Letterman, all those things, take them there, make sure they were dressed and saying the right thing, make sure they woke up on time, and I publicized movies and television shows, and there was just nothing better. And then I was on a set one day, and it was a set of a film called Collateral. I don't know if any of you have seen that film by Michael Mann. Great kind of dark thriller starring Tom Cruise, Jamie Foxx, Jada Pinkett, a young Javier Bardem, a young Mark Ruffalo, directed by Michael Mann. And he was using these new things called digital cameras. I was like, what is he doing? These are crazy. These look fantastic. And he was shooting in an area of Los Angeles that I was very familiar with, the black and brown communities of Los Angeles. He was shooting in South Central and East LA. And I thought, if he can do that, I want to do that. And so I started making films on my vacations and summers while I was running my PR firm. And I actually ended up making 4 films. Until one of the films won the Sundance Film Festival. And I thought, I'm gonna have to tell my clients. I should probably take this moment and see if I can be a full-time filmmaker. And so that was the moment that I sold my house and downsized and started being an independent filmmaker. So started the journey back, rebuilding my career from there.
Thanks for bringing this up to, and I'm going to stop at yesterday, not today. Yesterday, I had the great pleasure of visiting you on your campus. Little known fact, it was the first time we had met in person.
Yes.
Because we started, the magic started during the pandemic.
Yes.
And I knew you as a square on the screen.
Yes. I feel uncomfortable with how comfortable we've gotten with Zooms. And I really, when you feel like you know someone, I mean, my gosh, we made a whole movie together, and I'd never met him in person. It was odd. It was a familiarity, and yet weird.
3D.
Yeah. So here you are in real life.
And
IRL, as the kids say.
IRL. And there are a few things that struck me about the campus. The energy was palpable. The murals were breathtaking. And the little old ladies almost ran me over.
They were.
And you do this beautiful thing. You invite the community in for screenings. You had food from the restaurant I've gone to every night, Fixin's.
Yes.
And it was just a feeling of joy.
Oh, good.
So thank you.
Yeah, you happened to be there on a night, so Ray, you saw the things that we've done over the past couple of years, but a lot of it is centered out of our 4-building campus that we own in historic Filipino town. It's about 8 minutes from here. I wish you all could come, maybe next time. And so we do a lot of things. We incubate all our educational initiatives, our Array Crew, Array Green, our sustainability, all of that good stuff from this kind of sacred space, which I call a liberated territory. It's outside of Hollywood, and it is our space to do our thing our way, which is very different than the way that our colleagues in Hollywood do it, and is given wings by our partners like Ford. And but yeah, you happened to come last night when we were debuting our latest film that we acquired called For Our Children, the documentary, and you got to see the people, and boy, they were like, Hi, hey, sir. How are you? They were enjoying you being there, Roy. You were invited back.
She is in the entertainment industry after all. There were two things I heard that blew me away. One was when you said, we have everything here on this campus, even a rooster's crow. I thought it was a figure of speech. And then an actual rooster started going like, where is that coming from? And it was a part of the fabric of the community. The other thing that I heard, and by the way, my colleague Matthew Cregan was there with me, and he's over in the back there, and we're like looking at each other, wait, she was serious about that. The other thing I heard, which just was so fascinating, was a story about how you heard about the Ford Foundation your first time. I love the way you tell it. Please, could you please tell that story?
I mean, I'd heard about the Ford Foundation, as one does when you love films and you're watching PBS documentaries, and at the end it says, with the support of the Ford Foundation. I mean, that's as much as I knew about it. I always, wondered why they were always supporting documentaries. Would they support other things? But that's years and years ago. Cut to maybe 6 years ago now, 5 years ago, I got a call. My assistant says there's a man on line one, his name's Darren Walker. I was like, I don't know him. What does he want? Where is he from? Ford Foundation. I was like, okay. Hi, can I help you? Hi, and then it's Darren, and he's giving you everything. And I was just like, whoa, slow down. But basically what he says is, I saw your film 13th at the New York Film Festival. It was the first documentary to ever open the festival. And I went with my friend, Agnes Gund. And she has an idea that she wants to sell her artwork and put it into social justice work, and it's all because of this film that you've made, and her awareness of the topic. Tell me about your work. And I said, well, I make movies, and we try to educate the community through the movies. And he says, but how are you paying for it? And I said, well, I have a job, sir. I work. And he says, no, I mean, how are you funding your programs? And I said, well, I make a commercial or a music video or a TV show, and then I fund the programs. You're using your own money? Yeah, what else would I be doing? I mean, just completely, this is the real conversation. And he says, okay, you should not do that. It's not sustainable. You're not going to be able to fulfill your dreams because what you're doing is not sustainable. You need to put some architecture around what you're trying to do, and I want to help you. So he connected me with someone who could instruct me and kind of help me think differently about nonprofits, which I had a very bad taste in my mouth about because I thought, I'm going to go to jail because I'm going to mismanage my taxes. Like, I just need to stay away from it. Like, that's how people get in trouble. Like, I hear about actors having nonprofits. No, I'll just use my own money. So he connects me with a remarkable woman named Regina Miller. And Regina Miller becomes the architect of all of the things that my colleagues and I, Delane Jones, Mercedes Cooper, all of us at Array had been dreaming of doing, which is to really put some walls around our dreams and what we knew could happen in terms of disrupting the industry and doing things differently for the social good. And so Regina Miller joined our team, and Ford Foundation became our first funder. And from there, we are many years later with our campus, with all that you see here. And those were all of our dreams. And so that's what we hope to continue to do and more.
Thank you for telling that story. And you do an excellent Darren.
I'm glad I took the call, though. What if I had? It's important to take calls from people you don't know sometimes.
That was touch and go. So the one thing that struck me after I read the book Caste, and knowing that you wanted to make a movie of it, I'm like, how in the world is that going to work? Can you just talk about, first of all, why did the book, how did it come to your attention? Why did it strike you and what compelled you to try to turn that book into a movie?
Yes, so we made this film called Origin, and we raised the money in an untraditional way. We'll talk a bit about that. But the film Origin, which came out in January, is based on a book called Caste by a Pulitzer Prize-winning author named Isabel Wilkerson. And basically, it's an anthropological thesis. It's a nonfiction book that really talks about the theories, the idea that we all abide by an unspoken hierarchy of human value called caste. It's not just something that happens in India, which is what I thought ignorantly. That caste is something that we all abide by, and it is the foundation of all of our isms: racism, sexism, classism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. All of them sit on top of caste, and unless you know the ingredients of the problem that you're trying to solve for, what makes it up, you're never going to solve for these problems. And so to understand caste is a big part of anyone's interest in eradicating or dismantling any of those isms. That's what the book is about. Okay, how to make a movie about it? Well, I can certainly make a great documentary about it, but I'm starting to and a big part of what we're doing next is to start to think about how to put these messages, these ideas, this information, history, in forms that people want to digest, that feel accessible. And so the idea was to wrap all this information inside of a love story, inside of a personal journey. So I decided to make a film about the woman who wrote the book. As she's writing the book, you follow her and her discovery and her research and her world travels. And while she's writing the book, she's experiencing very personal issues that are all true for Isabel Wilkerson. And in that, we put together a film that is kind of part history, part personal memoir. And that's how we turned a nonfiction book into a drama.
And the story takes place all over the world. And when I remember speaking with Regina Tulane, and when I saw the production plan, and I said, wait a minute, you're going to make this in how many days? I was thinking in terms of years.
Right.
And can you just tell the story about how in the world did you do that?
Well, I just have to say, it was a delight to work with people who had never made films. In the same way, in a really good way, in the same way that I like to come into rooms and just hear about, different things that just to learn. It gave me a new perspective to have to talk about the making of films to people who knew nothing about making films. If you're in the industry, it's very much a shorthand, just like you all's industry. I was here listening to some people talk. It sounded like Greek. I was like, what are you talking about? Your terms, your shortcuts, the abbreviations, all that stuff. The context is there. You have that shared knowledge with one another. So in making this, none of our partners knew anything about making movies. And there were some frustrations, but also it allowed us to slow down, to really be thoughtful about what we were doing, and to just interrogate every single move. And so we shot the film in 37 days on 3 continents. So we made it in Savannah, Georgia, we were in Berlin, and we were in Mumbai. And we made this film about caste in a climate in our industry, in my industry, where ain't nobody making a film about caste, right? The film would not exist if it were not for these organizations and these individuals answering the call. And the call being, hey, I'm from Hollywood. I want to make films that Hollywood doesn't want to make. I believe there's an audience for it. I believe that there are adults, there are kids, there are all kinds of people around the world who are interested in more than superhero films and broad comedies and the kinds of things that our industry is steering towards. I love those kinds of films, but film is a powerful tool for narrative change, changing the way we think about ourselves and our place in the world. And films can do that, and they should do that, and they're the most powerful tool to do that, because in our mind, we think in picture. Our memories, it's our internal camera. To watch a film, to feel all the emotion, it's something that we can't abandon, even though the industry is constricting and consolidating, and it's becoming more difficult. That's why our idea is to look outside of Hollywood for ways to fund these pictures. And so this group of organizations, led by real visionaries and leaders, I feel, took the gamble to try to make this movie with us, and I think we did okay.
I'd say one of the things that resonated with Christine Abita and the rest of my team was we got a flavor for how the traditional financing pathway can dilute messages in ways that do not reflect the vision of the artist. And there were some scenes in that movie, and I don't want to do spoiler alerts for those who haven't seen it, but I do think it's important I think it'd be interesting to hear from you, and much of this is taken from the book. Were there any particular elements of the film that you found particularly moving or deeply affecting? The whole movie was affecting. I gotta tell you, if I hadn't been in a theater with my team, I may have walked out for a few minutes to just gather myself, because there were some scenes that hit me in a way and stirred up emotions that I've never felt in my life. And I've been around for a while. Was there anything that sticks out in your mind as being particularly touching or moving to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to get a sense, no big deal, but has anyone seen it? A few people? Oh my gosh, really? Well, that's a good group of people. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so many pieces of the puzzle, inside the film that are moving to me. I think the real big headline is the film would not exist. There's no way I can walk into a studio and say I want to make that film. And when you see someone there on the couch of the talk show and they're like, yes, it took me 10 years to get the money, like it's a badge of honor. I mean, that's a horrible thing. But that is what Hollywood will put you through to make one thing that says something. And I don't want to wait 10 years to make one movie. I want to make 10 movies in 10 years. And so the idea is, thank you. And so the idea was, I can either sit here and wait on this and, take my wares to each studio and get the no's and the maybes, and you know what, we'll commission an outline. Go write an outline. Okay, the outline, let us give you notes on the outline. We'll give you notes for a year. Okay, now you can go to script. You write a script. Great, notes on that. Script draft 1, script draft 2, script draft 15. Finally, okay, let's run a budget. And by then, you're 6 years in. That's what the process is for something that they don't want to make right away. And so this process was one where Regina Miller, I talked to her and I said, could this work? They always are giving money to these documentaries on PBS. Why don't we just ask them? They are our funders. They fund our work at Array. This is a new program. It's just a movie. She's like, yeah, I'll call Darren. Let's call Darren. So we called Darren. Darren's like, maybe let's call Roy. And then Roy's like, I don't know. Let me call Christine. Let me see. And Ford was the first one. It's like, we think so. I mean, we don't know why not. Maybe. Let's explore it. And it was this exploration that, was extraordinary, because once, I don't really understand your world, but once Ford came on, it was like I was walking with the high school football captain in the high school. I mean, I was like top cheerleader. Everyone wanted to talk to me. And all of a sudden, the rigor and the reputation of Ford, allowed other funders to say, yeah, this is untraditional, but if Ford is saying, yes, there must be something there, that was very important. And so, I mean, you all have this motto, what is it? Institutions, individuals, and ideas. I mean, and it seems like you really take it to heart. That was my experience. But I just wondered how you institutionalize that, because I really felt it at every point of our experience together.
Yeah. So we typically are not experts in anything we allocate capital to, with a few exceptions. And because of that, our process is very aligned with the Ford Foundation's mantra, which is the institutions, ideas, individuals. And that is, we bet on people. And we bet on people based on our interactions with them, their reputations, their body of work, and the potential we see to change the world. I love that saying, never underestimate the power of one person to change the world. We really believe that. And we're willing to put our money where our mouth is on that notion, because otherwise, why are we here? And the opportunity to be to activate that with you, we see a long runway of possibilities, because we're in the business of hope. We're in the business of hope and humanity at the Ford Foundation, and the ability to help activate narratives. I mean, we're as humans, narratives and storytelling is the air that we breathe. It is how we move the world forward. It's how we progress. We have to be inspired by what we see, feel, touch, read, in order to break through the inertia and to get a better understanding of the world around us. And those messages have to resonate. And that is why the narrative, the media, the messages that we can help add fuel to the fire so that they spread is a critically important part of our work. So you were like manna from heaven when we had the opportunity to become your partner.
It was a good match. For sure.
And on that topic of high school football captain, that's both literal and figurative. As a former high school football team.
Okay, a little flex, a little Ford flex. Yes, we'll take it.
I think that's either a dad joke or a humble brag. I'm not sure where that fits. The type of story that you're telling, and you as the vessel for telling the story, is sort of a symbol of the type of diversity that we don't see so much in Hollywood. And one of the things that is so remarkable about your journey is you've been able to lean into those headwinds. Can you talk a little bit about some of your experiences with diversity in Hollywood, how it's affected you? And
oh, it's so fun. It's fantastic. It's this conversation about diversity, equity, inclusion, and it becoming weaponized and used for. I mean, it's just. I think it really comes out of a lack of understanding, a lack of education, a lack of a common place. And I really feel that films provide that space. I don't think there's more sacred a space than a dark movie theater, shoulder to shoulder with someone you don't know, completely bearing your heart and emotions and letting a story come into your mind and your memory and your bloodstream. I mean, that's what you're doing when you go to a movie. And increasingly, we aren't doing that in the theater. We're doing that in our homes, which I think is a positive in some ways, because especially for a film like Origin, there are folks that won't go to a movie theater to see it because for whatever feelings it might bring up, or feel like I'd rather see it in the privacy of my own home, and who will watch films like 13th or Selma or Middle of Nowhere or my TV work, like When They See Us. They'll watch those pieces when they can stop and start and walk away and get the Kleenex and talk and then start it again, and all that's positive. And I think that these pieces allow folks to come into a space of understanding, because if you truly understood what diversity, equity, and inclusion meant, you wouldn't be able to be so easily moved from your understanding and told that it was a horrible thing that was going to hurt you, right? You wouldn't be able, if you understood what woke was, you wouldn't be so susceptible to someone changing your mind that it was the worst thing in the world and it must be stopped. It's like the sky is blue. Equity. Can we all not have a piece? Can we all not figure out how we can start from a certain place? And some people might need, a little bit more help to get to that place, but we can all start here and be on the same level. How is it bad? I like to have those conversations of just when folks are railing at me about all the things. let's be clear on our definitions of these words. Are we even talking about the same thing? And so a big part of at Array, we don't have a head of just education. She's a head of education and understanding, because that's such a huge part of what we're trying to do within these films. So when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, it's just trying to get to a common place of knowledge and respect. We don't have to agree, but can we at least all look at the sky and agree that it's blue? No? No. Why? Okay, wait, hold on. It's blue. Can we at least just get some key things that we agree upon? And I believe films and stories can help us get there. And I believe they make people stronger in their convictions and less susceptible to things that move them off, misinformation, propaganda. I mean, we are all very open to that because there isn't enough undergirding, there isn't enough knowledge about how things really are. And also not enough perspective on how someone else sees things, because nothing's just black and white. And so I believe films can help do that. And so we want to use films as a tool for that. And what we're saying here is Hollywood does not want to do that. Not because they're bad people, because that doesn't make as much money as superheroes do. So now what? Just abandon it? Or is there another place and is there another group of people who believe that this matters? And we can use these tools for the greater good.
Yeah, you reminded me of something that I have forgotten to raise with you, because I'm really interested in this thing that relates to the move from the capitalist system has swung, the pendulum has swung from time to time from the sort of Milton Hershey vision of capitalism, which was we're all in the same village, and he built his chocolate factory, and he literally built the village schools for the folks that work with him, through Johnson & Johnson, who said as long as we take care of the patients, our workers, our communities, our shareholders will do just fine. Your work came to the attention, was acknowledged by the pinnacle of capitalism, also known as Harvard Business School. There's a Harvard Business School case study, which when I went I couldn't make it the day, I went a week later, it was all the buzz. The students were inspired, they were excited, they were motivated. Everybody wants to be you. Can you just talk about that whole process, and what were the key messages that you hoped would come out of that case?
Yes, well, I just have to say, I just have to applaud the conference for the captions on here and the accessibility for folks who need it. I think that's great. I don't see that all the time. It's awesome. In Hollywood, they're not going to put captions on. It's captions optional, or they give you some headphones and say, fend for yourself in the back. So that's pretty great. Good job. Harvard Business School, Regina Miller had connected us with a professor over there, Anita, who, what's Anita's last name, Reg? Elbersy. Is that right? I can't hear you.
Elbers?
Elberus? Many pronunciations of good old Anita's last name. Anita E., Professor Anita, extraordinary. But she does these case studies on different aspects of culture, and the ways in which we can break that down and look at how these phenomenons are built. So we are far from a phenomenon, but there was something in it that interested her in terms of making films that it's a very capitalist endeavor, and making them and trying to put some use the word architecture around it that would make it sustainable and allow it to really have impact. And so this. While I was making Origin, you saw some of the footage there. She was observing us for this case study. And so she came to the set, and Reg says, this is the professor from Harvard. I was like, hey, it's kind of like Darren Walker. Hi, don't know nothing about Harvard. Welcome. Here it is. Have a look. Another month comes, she asks a few questions, and then it comes out into this incredible case study where I actually go and see the class presented to me. And she does a whole class where she's pushing them and pulling on facts and figures, and she's tearing it apart, and they're debating back with her and building it back up, and it's all about our idea, the work that we do on our 4-building campus in a historic Filipino town. And I can't tell you the confidence, the assurance that we were on the right path, the just joy it brought us to have our work that we do, which feels very artisan-like, very handmade, to have it analyzed by these students and by this place of esteem, and for them to come out on the other side and say, wow, this is sound, this is an idea whose time has been here and not yet been embraced, and it was just an extraordinary experience.
And today...
you can read it, it's online.
Yeah.
If you want to, it's pretty good.
Today there are students who are thinking about your business, and one of the things that stands out to many of us is the multiple facets that you've already mentioned, the nonprofit, the commercial combined with the non-commercial community-oriented work. One of the things, the more we peel back the layers on Ava, one of the things that made me really excited was the curriculum that you build for young people. I didn't know that you actually help teachers around the country teach the critical lessons that come out of your 40 films. And I don't know how many you've actually done with the curriculum, but that's something that allows the power of your vision to live on through the students. And the thing that I really liked about the set of funders reflected that bifurcation. We had capital coming from sort of grants to program-related investments to pure market rate. And that's the type of blended finance that works so well for someone like you who is impact-oriented, community-oriented. Do you expect that to continue? I can't imagine it wouldn't, but
Yeah. I mean, that hybrid approach to where the money comes from, and really being able to even say to a funder, we had funders that even within their participation were treating their money in different ways, even in their giving, and so it was dynamic to learn all of that in a very short period of time, and to have a group of organizations that were all learning together. I think when we think about what we do at Array, we try to disrupt the way that it's done, because the way that it's done has been done that way forever, and it's taking way too long. In order to get a study guide or a learning companion into a school district is a years-long process. Well, come on, we gotta get this done. So what we decided to do at Array, Tammy Garnes heads our education and understanding, is to say, you know what? We don't need to put it in the schools. We're just gonna make it. It's gonna be extraordinary. It's gonna be digital. You can go to Array 101 and check it out. We're going to do it for all of our films. It's going to be moving and lit up, and it's going to feel Hollywood, and it's going to be telling kids and any learners of all kinds. You come out of a movie and you want to know more, so you start to Google, and it takes you to crazy places. No. You just go to Array 101, and it's the deepest dive into what you've just seen, if it's come from Array, that you could ever imagine. And we're guiding you, and you're taking you to all kinds of places based on who you are, what your education level is, what your awareness is, and it's done in a dynamic way. And you know what? Forget it. We're not even going to go to the schools. We're just going to put it online for free there. And guess what? Schools start calling. School districts start calling. Hey, can we use this? What's going? And now our database is crazy. It's ridiculous. We wouldn't, if we had gone through the standard route, we would never. We would barely just be making it into one school district. It's insane. And so now, our list, our reach is incredible, and it's global on the education side. And our Origin learning companion will launch in June, and it is a companion to the streaming when Origin goes to streaming in June. And the idea is to just do it differently. Do the funding of the film differently. Just because it says this is the way you do it doesn't mean that that's the way you have to do it. And even as we think about the philanthropic endeavor, saying we're going to accept and make sure that we are rigorous and open in the different kinds of contributions that we would allow, that was a different way of doing it. And so anyway, and the answer to the question is yes, we're doing it again. And this time, what we learned, we take our learnings from the first thing and we apply it to the next. What we understand that we need to do is truly create an end-to-end model for the films. So what we all did together is we made a film free from studio interference, and it gave us a film that was exactly what we wanted. It said what we wanted to say, and all of the partners were able to hold hands and put this out into the world. Our team executed it creatively. The whole team executed it financially, and the impact is just getting started, and we know that works. What we didn't do is the next piece of the marketing and distribution of it. We had to go and find someone else to market and distribute it. What we want to be able to do is control it end to end, from the making, the writing, the development, the production, the post-production, the music, the editing, the special effects, all the things that I do, and to not then take it and pass it off, but to continue to market it, promote it, publicize it, and then distribute it internationally in places that are not just the multiplex mall, but into the places where people are actually watching films, which might be in untraditional places. And so our next raise is to take it from end to end and use the same model, but just expand it a bit.
And as you were telling that story, it reminded me that when Regina and Tammy were talking with me about the Seat 16 project, like some of your other ideas, it was so compelling that I felt the Ford Foundation's money wasn't enough. I actually made several contributions.
You did, personally.
To Seat 16 to help finance some screenings for some school
Seat 16,
children.
I'll just say, Seat 16 was an idea. If you come out of the film and you were moved by it and you feel that someone should see it, I had a goal that I wanted every 16-year-old in the country to have the opportunity to see the film if they wanted. So you could come out of the film and buy a ticket, and we would give that ticket to a 16-year-old who didn't have to buy a ticket. So it was a one-ticket donating effort, and it raised $500,000. $500,000 in tickets from people who saw the film, were moved, and wanted to buy a ticket for someone else. And then eventually, it moved from 16-year-olds to 15, 14. It moved to seniors. It moved to people who wanted to see the film who didn't have the capacity to see the film. And it's something that we'll be replicating again as well. I have to say, please allow me, that Seat 16 thing was an idea, almost took us down. We have a very small but mighty team. And there was a woman named Mercedes Cooper who really headed that up. And there was a whole group of people at Array who, for the first time in a long time, I actually let them leave the campus today. And they are here. Array, stand up. Where's Team Array? Array, stand up. Stand up. Look at my people. They're over there. They're over there. Look how pretty they are. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, there you have production, you have education, you have Array Green, you have Array Crew, you have Array Creative Campus, you have Array Public Programming, you have Array Releasing, Alliance, all the things we do with that small team. And I'm just proud. I'm proud of it, and it just shows you can do a lot with a little, and you can do even more with a lot.
And
that's
I'm going to come back to that a lot part in a minute. I do want to say that you and your team, you're a wellspring of ideas. One of your ideas we're going to copy, and that was the idea you came up with to help increase the number of women and people of color engaged in the production activity, you all came up. Explain what you did.
Yeah, Array Crew. We created a database. I was always getting calls from director friends, producer friends, studio executives saying, hey, I gotta diversify. You know, I really want to. I want to diversify. Don't have to. I want to. Can you give me a Latina gaffer? Or do you have anyone who does lighting who's not white? Or, you know, do you have anyone older? So we created a database that has all kinds of people of color, women of all kinds, seniors, veterans, people with disabilities, all kinds of folks that are not the first person that I thought of for these positions, who are experienced, who are great at their jobs, and who are just, they're off the beaten path just a bit. So we created a database that now has 10,000 people in it. And so you don't have to say, I can't find them, because I'll be like, have you gone to Array Crew? And Array Crew is now used by every single studio in this town. Every single studio. There's not one that doesn't use it. And that was something that we incubated in 2 years. We had the idea, we incubated it, we went to our partners, we said this is what we wanted to do, and Ford, first on, came on early on, and then everyone else said, okay, high school football coach or football captain, we'll come too.
I'm going to maintain my modest disposition. So we're going to try to copy that idea for corporate board members, because what we find is through help of some partners, and there'll be more news on that later, to solve the issue. So going back to that notion of a lot, you are just getting started, and we are just getting started as your partner. There's a lot of folks in this room. You have something for everyone. You have Array, the nonprofit. You have opportunities for PRI. You have opportunities for market rate. Are we going to have an opportunity to become your investment partner again? And if so, when?
Wow, what a thing to hear. Well, I received that with great pleasure, and it's an honor to hear it from you. And I think, you know, out of all the things we're doing, you know, Ford has been first on, but it's really been about creating community around these things. And so there's a beautiful family of funders that have come on board. And the main thing to think about here, I think, is ROI. You know, what is that return and what matters to you? And that's not always data. You know, what do you want to do? What can you do? What can what kind of capacity could be built? You know, I think about institution building a lot. You know, I want Array to last way beyond me. You know, I mean, we're here talking about the Ford Foundation. You know, we're here talking about a lot of institutions here and organizations that started with an idea. And, you know, whether that idea was the most noble or whether it was on mission with what you're doing now, they still exist. And they exist because they had the right framework, the right foundation. And that's what we're trying to build here, something that lasts. This isn't an ego boost for me and my films. Like, this is trying to say, let's start something. Let's start something where there's a new way to get information, awareness, understanding out into the world. If making money is what you want to do, there's opportunities for that. If social impact is something you want to do, there's opportunities to invest in that. If grant making is something that you want to do, we're mission-based, and there's something for that. If it's climate and sustainability, Array Green. If it is about, you know, I'm very into space now, the Array Creative Campus, and ways that safe spaces in terms of physical spaces can spring up around the country and provide safe havens. How do we combat against misinformation? How do we share each other's histories? All of these questions, I think, can be answered within the idea of narrative change. And so we're a narrative change studio in a town that is in a time of flux. And I embrace that as opportunity, not as a bad thing. And just invite you all to, if it's not us, to really think about where are the opportunities where you are to lean into narrative change, and because they're there and it's powerful. Be brave. Give it a try.
Thanks for that. So I'm now going to do my best impression of a Hollywood mogul, and I'm going to say it's a wrap. Thank you, Ava.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks to everyone for
Thank
coming to
you.
2024
Thank
MIE.
you. Thanks a lot.